Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, presented by Cattle, Season 5, Episode 27. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Our very special guest on this episode is Mark Cunningham, President and COO of Smokes Poutinerie, a Canadian poutine restaurant franchise founded by Ryan Smokin in 2008. They opened up their first location in Toronto, first poutine restaurant in the city. What a brand, what a story. Ryan passed away in 2023. He will forever, as Mark tells us, remain their CEO. Kind of like the Tragically Hip, right? They'll never have another lead singer after Gord passed. It's a great conversation. We talk about their business, their customers, their innovation process, their poutine eating championship. Sylvain is the author of the book, by the way, which is coming out in English in this fall, on the history of poutine. What role or place does Smokes Poutinerie have in your estimation?
Well, in my view, Smokes Poutinerie is the ambassador of poutine for the Rock, for the rest of Canada and beyond, I think. Really, they made a big difference. But you see, before they came along, you saw poutine delivered in many different places in Canada, but it wasn't really, they knew that cheese curds were a big deal. And so they do come close to the real thing that is served in Quebec. And they made an effort to really honor that, which is great. And they're the only chain that really is solely dedicated to poutine.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And they're making a living out of it, which is really interesting.
I find it a fascinating brand story from my perspective because it's not unusual for brand founders to pass away in the fullness of time and still have a role in the brand of the in the modern restaurant. But the fact that he's such a prominent role, that being Ryan, still is, I think it's a really interesting example of branding and
because I grew up in the 80s, you grew up in the 60s, so you can relate, but
hey now.
But I mean, if you grew up in the 80s, their branding really makes sense as far as I'm concerned. And so that's what they're aiming at. People who can actually die eating one poutine, but that's okay. But it's going to be a good poutine. It's the best.
Reminds me of the deep dish pizza I just had in Chicago. It should have come along with a consultation from a heart surgeon. Or a cardiac, a cardiac guide or something. Anyway, all right, let's get into the news. As always, these weeks, there's a lot to it. And by the way, we're getting more and more listeners. Our numbers are really strong. So hopefully
That's
out there,
great.
you're all enjoying, or at least getting mad at me or getting mad at Sylvain and enjoying
Who cares?
the discussion.
Debates are good.
Debates are good. So let's start with Loblaws. Loblaws gives the middle finger to tariffs on their products with a specialized logo indicating products on shelf impact by tariffs. A bold move. I'm looking at it now. Wait. Oh, geez, it was upside down. It's a T. I thought it was the middle finger. It's a T for tariffs. I didn't get that.
Sneaky beaky.
You had I was of course watching on social media. You had questions. I thought, well, that's very interesting approach. They're one of the first ones out to do something like that. We're seeing other things. You had questions. They had answers. Talk about your perspective on this you're a big fan of transparency. Maybe falls a tiny bit short in your estimation, but talk about it.
A little. Well, first of all, I do appreciate Loblaw's effort. They did reach out to me before the news came out, Catherine Thomas and her team. So thank you for allowing me to know in advance what was happening there. I actually thought it was a good idea to see a company gaining ahead of an issue as complicated as tariffs. I think is great. And as you just pointed out, transparency is really key here. My concern is really about tariffs. It's not just about Loblaw, it's about tariffs. Like right now, I don't know how you feel about what's going on right now, Michael, but I think a lot of people don't understand tariffs. I mean, they don't understand how it impacts the economy on both sides of the border. You have tariffs, counter tariffs. And right now, you're seeing a company basically trying to take control of the agenda for their consumers, for their customers, of course, while we have a lack of leadership politically. We have premiers trying to take over, trying to control things. We've got city mayors going to Washington. You got a transfer of power in Ottawa from one person to another between Trudeau and Carney now. So it's a bit of a mess. So you're seeing companies like Loblaw trying to get ahead to control what's happening, even if there are no tariffs yet. But here's the thing.
Even if it's a little imperfect, right? I think you'd give them
it's something.
Credit
so
for doing
I wasn't surprised that Loblaw felt the need to do something. So I get it. I don't know if you do, but I get it. Here's the thing, though. You know how counter tariffs work, right? When a product or a few products are impacted by tariffs going into a market, it's not just that one product that is impacted by tariffs. It's a bunch of products indirectly because consumers will look at differentials pricing. They'll look at price points. So if one product is impacted and that price goes higher, the other products are likely going to be moved as well. And so I understand that they're targeting specific targets, but really in reality, let's face it, inflation is a multi-factor phenomena, and tariffs can impact products that aren't necessarily impacting directly products at all. So tariffs can actually impact categories, can impact the economy overall, and I just think that the approach may be a little bit too simplistic. The other issue, of course, and I did get a response from Loblaw, is that we're going to see probably a wave of tariffs on ingredients. Now, do you think that suppliers will actually disclose to Loblaw if they have ingredients impacted by tariffs? And the answer is that if there's a product made in Canada or prepared in Canada, that T won't apply. But I do think that prices may be impacted because of tariffs as a result of ingredients being targeted by Ottawa.
It's an interesting point you make about a category distinction versus an item distinction. I guess in the fullness of time...
You're the retail guy. You know this, right?
Well, I think, as a retail operator, I was a retail operator before something happened. And that something is the massive amount of data compute power that exists today is materially different than it was when I was a retailer. And I could never imagine the scale of which you could get. I mean, how many units are in an average Loblaw?
About 20,000 SKUs, yeah.
So if there's 20,000 SKUs, I could never imagine a world when I was an operator in retail having the compute power to get down to a more granular level. But they do have that power today. I mean, they have that through AI. They have it through pure compute power. So it's an interesting proposition that they could differentiate at the item level with such a tactic. Will they? Can they? And of course, people can. They will be offering potentially where they exist substitutes within that category. So that category thing is very interesting. Yeah. It's a very interesting discussion.
The other thing, of course, the big elephant in the room is that when people will see the T, will they believe Loblaw? Will they believe any grocer, knowing that there is a bit of a trust issue right now? And I think everyone can recognize that. And
it's such an interesting point because I feel like that issue has been overwhelmed by the bigger issue we face today. Like, I don't hear a lot about trust. I hear they're Canadian and standing up for Canada. Like, I watched the reaction, for example, just to putting this tea on, and it seemed to be quite positive. Like, it feels like this issue has trumped, get what I did there, the trust issue. And what do you think?
Trust towards whom?
Well, the grocers, Loblaw. You were talking about trust to Loblaws, right?
Well, how I read Loblaw's move is, yes, counter tariffs. We need to do something. We need to respond. It's all about geopolitics, but this will come at a cost, and people need to know where these increases are coming from. So that's what Loblaw's move is all about.
See, I'm putting my marketer hat on, and I've been talking to a lot of retailers about this. There's going to be headwinds and tailwinds in the industry, right? And one of the tailwinds is, as a Canadian retailer, you've got a bit of a tailwind now. And as a US-based retailer, you got a bit of a headwind now. It may not, if you lose one product sale because of it, I'm going to call it a headwind or a tailwind. So I think Loblaw they're very savvy marketers, and they say whatever we can do to accentuate the fact that we're doing something about it. I think from a marketing perspective, is allowing Canadians.
Have you been to a grocery store of late? Man, I mean, it's being de-Americanized like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you go into the produce section where typically in March, it's pretty American. It's pretty American. The only American product I was able to find are leafy greens. Other than that, it was all like South Africa, Turkey,
lots of
Morocco,
Mexico, South America,
Mexico,
yeah.
Peru. I mean, it was all over the place except America. And if you did find American products, they were all on sale. All of them. They can't get it away. So will we see the tea at all at Loblaws?
Well, I mean, it's a fascinating point, and let's keep a close eye on it. I'm fascinated to watch what other grocers.
So it's a tailwind for Loblaw because there are a lot of Canadian products, but
and they're Canadian.
They're Canadian.
And they're
as
Canadian.
They de-Americanize their food offering, I don't know if there's going to be any teas out there.
You know, it's funny. I reflect back on how we talked to Power Bank and how he was surprised that you guys must be doing great. You must be loved because you're Canadian.
Yeah,
right. I mean, that was such an epiphany for him. But I think, and this is the first time in my career.
But do you think that traffic at Costco and Walmart has gone down as a result of all this?
All I could say is tailwinds and headwinds.
I'm seeing a lot of people at Costco.
Tailwinds and headwinds, my friend. If you lose a sale because of this, I don't know how big this movement's going to be. We'll see. But it's, listen, when you're fighting for market share, any little advantage. But
it's a movement. I mean, you saw like Nick numbers are pretty clear. I mean, people are pro-Canadian, but they're certainly anti-American. Like clearly. I've never seen anything like this.
I've never had. Listen, I go back to, speaking of Hudson's Bay, which the American company that went into protection this week. I was with Hudson's Bay and, 25 years ago. And there was this notion that we should be, and again, from another American CEO came up and says, why are we screaming at people that we're Canadian and the oldest company in Canada? And we said, the consumer said, we don't care. That was true.
Really?
That was true up until 2 months ago or a month ago. Like, it has changed dramatically. I see it. Because it now makes a difference, and it never has really before.
So Trump was elected too late for the Hudson's Bay company. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like 40 years too late. Yeah. Nothing's going to save those. And it doesn't matter. They're not Canadian anyway.
Was it savable? Like, I don't know anything about the Hudson's Bay. Oh, I know the history, but I don't know anything about the business.
Well, I in summary, they were and have not been a Canadian company for a generation. I mean, the last, big move, I guess, was when I was there. A guy from South Carolina, a guy named Zucker, just did some private equity stuff. And he was like the dog that caught the car. He didn't really want Hudson's Bay. The only thing that saved Hudson's Bay back then, the only thing was two things. One, they sold Zellers to some suckers in America called Target. And two, they sold the credit card file. Otherwise, they would have been gone 20 years ago. And it's not really, it's not their fault. The category department store has structurally been declining for 20 years. No one's really doing that well as someone who just sells a bunch of stuff that they buy from someone else to someone else. So are they savable? The short answer is not really. Anyway, it's a longer story. Tune into the Voice of Retail podcast as I'm starting
They don't sell a whole lot of food, so...
Yeah, it's not really relevant
cover
to
the
us.
Story at all.
They had some big food court, like they did some innovation, and they had a big food court. They had a big deal with a vendor that's now Poutinerie, right? That went out of business, but not really a food story. Let's talk about Moosehead. Did you see what Moosehead is doing? They're offering a presidential pack. Shout out to Moosehead, 1,461 beers, so you can have a beer day lasting out the Trump presidency.
Here's the question. So exactly. Those are the number of days left in Trump's presidency. My question to you, my friend,
yes,
will he last 1,400 days?
There's two schools of thought. One is eventually his health's going to catch up with him. There's been some talk about him dragging his left foot or whatever, but he's not a young man and he's keeping a pace that's frankly quite impressive. Will he last? I think my fear is that he will last well beyond it. In fact, you and I have a bet for dinner at Garden Day.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to enjoying dinner on your dime I'm not really looking forward. I'm not really looking forward to it because it means.
But it's fun. It's interesting how like Elmer canned soup, which is Canadian, just came out with a French commercial with the 25% tariff. I don't know if it's actually there is an English version, but you're seeing all sorts of food companies really using this as an opportunity to promote their product, which is great. I mean, it's that's what you want, right? You want creativity. Why waste a crisis where you can actually have fun and promote your product? So I kudos to all those companies like Moosehead, like Elmer, really promoting their products and using a little bit of politics. Because as you know, Michael, you don't use politics to market your products ever.
Yeah,
it's too risky.
It's something. I haven't seen anything like this in my career.
Me neither. It's great.
So what a time. Shout out, by the way, to the Sprague folks who make the best beans. Kick those bush beans.
And they're pretty aggressive as well. So,
we had them on when we had that trying stuff. Kick those bush beans to the side. These guys make the best beans in Prince Edward County.
Exactly.
So there's a shout out to them. Hey, I wanted to circle back on something we talked about last week. I'd asked you a question that neither of us had the answer to. You know, we've been watching this USAID demolition in the States. I guess it's finally, resolved that about 83% of it goes away and the rest gets pushed into the State Department. Whatever, not of that much interest to us. But what was interesting was the statistic, and you and I didn't know the answer to this. $2 billion of their budget was spent with American farmers on food around the world, which
that's right.
I don't know if it goes away or if it all goes away. And it got me thinking about Canadian initiatives, and I looked, and it looked like we give about $8 billion globally in total, which is a whole bunch of different things. Any idea how much of that is food? I got to think food's a little bit of that. Any idea?
Yeah, it's about, it's a good portion. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's a good portion. It's not the majority, but it's a good portion. So we do have some very, very generous trade groups in Canada, and that's being Canadian, helping out. We're a rich country, and we do have a lot to offer. So this is something that we've made a huge contribution, and this blow in the United States, I think, is going to impact Americans. It's going to impact their morale, I think, as I know a lot of Americans want to help the world. I mean, it's just this is one thing that is being eliminated. And by the way, of the $2 billion, there's $2 billion, but there's $500 million worth of food in inventory right now that is rotting. Just so you know. Yeah.
I guess
on top of the $2 billion.
I guess that's a negative on the Doge ledger then, if they waste half a billion.
I would say so. I mean, I don't think they're getting any kudos on how it's being managed right now. I don't think. Yeah.
Let's get back to. I skipped over one thing that just kind of popped into my mind the way I kind of do these things, but I wanted to get back to, and you mentioned it earlier. We've had some retaliation against the Americans from around the world. We've seen China and us actually. We've seen China, who took their time after we put a 100% tariff on their EVs last year. They've retaliated against canola and seafood. Let's talk about that. So where do you think we can set off with them? They certainly took their time. And I'm not sure that us not putting that 100% tariff on to be in lockstep with America, who did it first, was a bad idea. But maybe it's not a good idea now, and we can take that tariff off and, maybe a little forgiveness or a little opportunity.
Well, it's funny because we all know that Trudeau got a phone call from Biden and asked him to do this. I think we all knew this, and we kind of went, okay,
felt like
whatever.
The right thing to be on side at that point. Like I would say that
we had a different tenant in the White House, and we'll eventually have a new tenant in the White House eventually. And so
not soon enough, but yeah.
Listen, when it comes to geopolitics, Canada sucks. Okay, can we say that? Can I just put that on the table? We suck at it, okay? And China, again, gave us a masterclass in terms of how it works. Again, we saw that in 2018 with the Meng Wanzhou arrest in Vancouver, the VP of Huawei, and we're seeing again. Basically, you see Canada do something without really thinking. Like, for example, that plane should have never landed in Vancouver, by the way. And two, right now with the EVs, we saw China not aiming at a sector related to automotive, they're aiming at our farmers, harvesters and farmers, where it hurts. So I think there's a lesson there for us. And so back in October, we decided to actually issue tariffs on EVs and batteries coming from China to create this North American fortress. And of course, we're investing $50 billion in this sector that doesn't even exist yet. Okay. And Nordvoort just declared bankruptcy this week. One of the partners for that plant in Quebec just went bankrupt in Europe. The North American division is not bankrupt, but you can see that this is a house of cards. So we're investing a lot of money into one sector, but who's going to be paying for all this? Our farmers again.
You know, it's a great point because we had this conversation off mic with John Pigott last week, where we were talking about if we put all this effort into, and you've made this point too, if we put that $50 billion into food, we'd be better off, and we would have been better off. It's not too late. I don't know where we are with this. We got a new government coming in. Carney's prime minister this week. Next week, I expect him to call an election. Politics is about timing. There's never a better time for the Liberals to call an election. They're up in the polls.
Well, there's a couple of hanging balls for Carney, and frankly,
right?
I don't know what he's going to do with, say, the carbon tax, which is increasing on April 1st. That's coming up in a few weeks.
I thought he talked about canceling it. Did he? I thought
canceling the consumer carbon tax. But I don't know, because Parliament is being prorogued right now. I don't know if he has enough time to actually cancel anything. That's the thing. Okay. And two, what he's going to do with China. I mean, I actually don't know. I don't know much about. So we heard about his platform, but is that going to be the Liberal Party's platform? I don't know.
Question. It's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I think Parliament can. You don't need to convene Parliament to not move ahead with a tax, would be my assessment. Like, Parliament can do a lot in the state of being prorogued, right? Like, they're passing countervailing taxes without Parliament.
Well, I mean, the carbon tax was, I would argue, probably one of the most important environmental policy that Trudeau had on his agenda, and I honestly, I think you need a cabinet discussion at the very least, and he doesn't have a appointed cabinet yet, so he has to form his cabinet, get a discussion going. So, but I do think that Canada or Canadians not only are eager, but should be eager to see an election coming, because let's face it,
100%.
Mark Carney was just appointed prime minister by 132,000 Canadians.
Well, that's
a lot of them. That's
a red herring.
Trump knows this, and
he
hasn't even called Carney yet.
Yeah,
he
but
hasn't even called Carney yet in 2 days.
If anybody's listening,
if someone wins an election or actually becomes the leader of a state or a country, you call the guy.
That's right. You know, average kind of relationships with countries, one to another, says, "Hey, congratulations, looking forward to working with you." That's not what we're up against here. We're not up against an average, regular force of nature.
But Mark Carney needs a mandate by the Canadian
mandate
people.
Or no. I mean,
he does not have a mandate right now. He can't do anything legitimately.
You know, we're not in negotiation with America. Like, negotiation, we got a treaty. It's not written the word.
We're in a war with America.
Well, we're in a fight in the mud for a knife with these guys. Like, it's not. We can't trust anything they write down. We've got an agreement. I think we'll be going to the polls on May 5th, from what I hear from different scenarios, like the time it takes to pull it together. I mean, you got to give them a little bit of time to pull a cabinet together, like, right? So I think the earliest will be May 5th. Let's talk about Europe's retaliation now, and where Europe is, the EU's retaliating against tariffs against the States. Is there an opportunity there for Canadian ag? Because I think they put some tariffs on chicken and some other stuff, yeah?
Yep. No, absolutely. So obviously the entire world is up against the Americans. It's tough to, I mean, every day. I mean, every day. Just, but of course that opens up a bunch of opportunities for our ag sector right here in Canada.
Yeah.
And we have a trade deal with the EU.
CETA, right?
Yeah,
CETA,
absolutely.
Right?
So we sell a lot of stuff to the EU, probably around 4 or 5 billion. What's odd about the EU is that we buy more from them than they buy from us, and they're 500 million people. We're 41 million, so Europe is a missed opportunity. And again, I'm sad about what's happening with the US. But you know what? It made us blind a little bit.
Gets us thinking. You're absolutely right. Gets us thinking.
It made us blind a little
bit.
And we can become this huge platform between Europe and North America to trade. And so they sell us cheese, dairy, specialty products. Obviously, a lot of the stuff comes from Germany and Italy. Pasta,
Portugal too. Lots of good
Portugal
stuff,
as well. Alcohol, and we sell them alcohol. We sell them beef. We sell not beef, but we sell them some pork, not all, some specialty parts. But there's so much opportunity. So it's about 4 billion going out and 8 billion coming in from Europe. So there's a trade imbalance, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be the opposite, at least.
Fascinating. All right, let's take a break from the news. Let's get to our interview with Mark Cunningham right after this message from Cattle. Does your digital customer engagement strategy need a serious upgrade? Enter Cattle, Canada's consumer insights powerhouse with the largest, most active panel of everyday shoppers. They're not your typical sponsor. They're the voice of the consumer, always in the know on the hottest trends and shaping what's next. So why Cattle? They go beyond consumer insights. They're trailblazing the future of ratings and reviews and leading the charge in user-generated content with unmatched syndicated receipt data and the ability to gather reviews across any category. Cattle partners with giants like Walmart, Canadian Tire to deliver results that count. Visit askcattle.com now for an exclusive The Food Professor podcast listener discount on your first review or research campaign today. That's askcattle.com.
Really excited today to have Mark Cunningham, the CEO of Smokes Poutinerie, joining us for our show today. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you. I'll restate, actually, I'm not the CEO. I'm the president and chief operating officer. Ryan Smoken, our CEO or chief entertainment officer, will always hold that title.
Yeah, and so it's great. It's great to have you on our show today. As you know, I've written a book on poutine. I'm a big fan of poutine, and I've been a big fan of your company as well, and the things you've done in the Rock, in English Canada, and the rest of the world. So really excited to have you on today. So I guess. To start things off, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Smokes Poutinerie.
Yeah, I started actually. I met Ryan Smoken, obviously the founder and chief entertainment officer of Smokes Poutinerie, in and around probably 2012. I think was our first meeting. So knew him in the industry. Obviously, he was making lots of noise, and at that time, poutine. Even coming out of Quebec was new, and the way he was doing it on the entertainment side, and that's I'd have to say I've always been a poutine lover, but I stepped into the role with Ryan as his chief development officer in the fall of 2014, and yep. Obviously.
And how did you meet Ryan?
Long story, but the company I was with when Ryan was, I think he had 3 or 4 locations at the time. We talked to him about acquiring Smokes Poutinerie because we were, a small multi-branded company and looking to add additional brands to our portfolio. So. Got the chance to meet Ryan in that. I wouldn't say it was a transaction, so because he plainly gave us the middle finger and told us where to go. We stayed friends, and he reached out to me a number of times. Just with questions in the industry, and he was looking at. Entering into the non-traditional side of the business, so going into arenas and stadiums and airports and college and universities and amusement parks. So a strong, I'd say, relationship through him asking lots of questions and me answering those questions for him. And I think the summer of 2014, he just said, I need you. And we had long conversations on the need, and we obviously became good friends very, very quickly, and then became business partners in 2014.
So I've never met Ryan Smoking. I've spoken to him, but I've never met him in person. For those who've never met Ryan, how would you describe him?
Well, we call him our Chief Entertainment Officer, so that can tell you a little bit about him. High energy, and if you've spoken to him, you remember that energy, whether it's a live in-person meeting, him giving you the high five and maybe the fist pump, but just very passionate, a great brand ambassador, a great brand builder. I think he realized his love of poutine growing up in the Ottawa Valley and Smith Falls, but also realized that, bringing poutine coast to coast in Canada, he had to package it in a different form and being able to, kind of Canadianize it, and, the red and black plaid and the 80s glam rock. Obviously, he grew up in the 80s like myself.
Yep.
So music and the entertainment part of building the brands were really kind of the key to, the early success and really kind of attracting our core demographics, at that time, 18 to 25, and it continues to be our core demographic. We always joke now that our core demographics weren't around in the 80s, but they always seem to know at least a verse of every 80s glam rock song that we play on our Smokes radio and Smoke-O-Vision in our restaurants.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess so the brand itself, what's so unique about the brand? How would you describe that uniqueness in the QSR space?
Well, obviously, 100% focused on poutine, which, even, the origin of poutine, it was a side dish, right? It was something that maybe you put along with a steamy or a burger. It was an upgrade on an order of French fries. So, packaging everything together and even the Poutinerie name, it was all about everything that we're putting on top of that poutine, right? Yes, we're fries, cheese curd, and gravy, but it was that chipotle pulled pork, it was that double smoked bacon, it was the ingredients that we were putting on top of it, and really packaging it in that red and black plaid box, really playing on the Canadiana, and that 80s theme, from our characters that we put in our restaurants and our graphics to, the 80s glam rock videos that play on our Smoke-O-Vision screen in our dining rooms. So it was always packaging it together and really kind of giving a fun experience to a fan. And we call our customers fans because they're fans of the brand, and we would interact with them when they came into our restaurants as fans, and we've kind of built that cult-like following, and being able to kind of highlight a lot of touch points in the brand that really make it a great destination for our demographics.
Mark, you called a hot dog a steamy just a bit ago. Does that tell me that you're from the province of Quebec? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Ireland, so far away from steamies and Quebec. Obviously, with Ryan, a lot of time spent in Quebec. A lot of time spent in Quebec, actually, in my whole career. So I've had a lot of time in eating poutine and steamies over my lifetime, but it wasn't something I grew up with in Ireland, that's for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about, let's back up for 1 second. How many, just for the folks listening who may not be all that aware of your business, how many units do you have and where do you operate? Just give us some basic facts so people can get their arms around the scope and scale of your business.
Yeah. I'll kind of break it down into our two categories. So we have our traditional franchise locations. So they're coast to coast in Canada. So from St. John's, Newfoundland to Vancouver. So those are our four-wall locations. So we're a little bit over 45 of those locations. So those are franchise operated. Some of them are individually franchised, and quite a few of them are multi-unit franchised. So franchisees that got more than one location.
Sure.
And then our second division is Smokes Poutinerie Sports and Entertainment, and that is really our non-traditional segment. So that's everything from our college and university campuses. So we're right locked into those campuses. We do airports, amusement parks, Toronto Zoo, and airports.
I see.
And then we ventured into the ghost kitchen category. Kind of during COVID. So we've got a number of ghost kitchen locations, either at a four-wall or we've opened quite a few inside Walmarts now. And we've also got one in Walmart head office there in Mississauga. So total, we're a little bit over 100 locations with our non-traditional and traditional locations. And that includes that non-traditional segment also includes our food trucks and trailers, which we call Smokes on Wheels, that our four-wall franchise operators can add a Smokes on Wheels mobile truck or trailer as part of their restaurant operation that they can take poutine to the people, as we say.
Well, it's a very dynamic operation. Let's talk about growth, because everybody wants growth, but it can bring its own challenges. Sounds like you've chosen to do both a corporate, I guess, which is your alternative to some degree, but also franchisees. You mentioned you were with your franchisees and suppliers in Mexico celebrating. Talk about the keys to success and the lessons you've learned, and maybe some of the challenges of growing a business with in the way that you've approached it. It's a little complex, but at the same time, it's a straight through line to what your core brand is. But talk about your experience in growing the business.
Yeah, growing both segments, either the non-traditional or our traditional location. Now, a lot of the non-traditional locations are run by the big food service companies, so Compass and Aramark. We're with HMS Host at the airport, so they're still kind of franchise, but more license agreements.
I see.
On the traditional side, probably the challenge kind of post-COVID right now is lots of interest on the franchise side. We've got a lot of franchisees signed, and we're just on the real estate hunt, and that's more challenging for us versus anyone else in the QSR segment. Late night is a big part of our business. So we say late night in our business is 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Wow.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So it's only 3 days of the week. So when we're looking at real estate, we're looking at where our core demographics, 18 to 25, is located Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So it's usually downtown cores, and we're in a lot of college and university towns, so we obviously try to highlight a lot of that. So I would say that's probably our biggest challenge today is finding the right real estate. We got a little bit smaller kind of post-COVID. We were down in that 1,000 to 1,200 square feet now, where we were probably 1,500 to 1,800 square feet before COVID, and a lot of that has to do with the delivery option within our segment. So we launched delivery in the summer of 2017.
That's got to be a big percentage of your business versus other QSR operators, given your audience. Is it double digit? Are you surprised how big it is? And can you share how big it is?
Yeah, kind of going into COVID, we're about 18% of our business was delivery. Skyrocketed during COVID.
Sure.
We've kind of leveled out right now. we're about 35% of our business model nationally is delivery. So a big segment. And we do have some restaurants that are running 50% of the business through those delivery, third-party delivery channels. So it's a big part of what we have to focus on, and how our product is getting to our fan at the end through those delivery segments. We've had to adjust the menu a little bit in those delivery categories just to make sure we've got the best offering, coming to our fans through those channels.
Have you thought of, and this gets to the next question, which is around innovation and creativity, but I'm curious if you've explored custom packaging when you deliver your food. I mean, it's very different than walking away from the counter with your product versus coming out of the back seat of somebody's car, right? And a lot of a lot of restaurateurs worry about the quality of the food once it's on that doorstep. So, how do you think about that? And then we'll talk about your creative process for coming up with new innovative ideas.
Yeah, we did make some changes in our packaging. I wouldn't say it was driven by the delivery categories, but it was probably kind of pushed forward to the top of the priority list when we started playing in that non-traditional category. So when we're in those arenas and stadiums and airports, so again, potentially you're not eating it as soon as you get the box of poutine. You're taking it back to your seat. You're packing it and bringing it on a plane with you. So it made us kind of look at our packaging and how that product would stay warm. And obviously, it's this piping hot poutine sauce, lots of toppings on that. Yeah. So we did look. I would say it's probably about 2015 when we looked at a major change in our packaging. We changed companies, and that packaging has been with us since then. Wow!
Now take us, if you could, inside the brain of this business. I mean, the whiteboard that says, okay, we got to come up with 10 new menu items next year. Like, take us through that process if you could. How do you go about doing that? When you're traveling, do you find some, hey, this is a great pepper I found in Mexico. Let's put it in the menu. Talk about your creative process.
Well, it probably starts with our marketing focus. We've always said we're disruptors, right? We're not as big as the big boys in the QSR segment, so we do like poking them quite a bit. So that's probably our initial strategy is how can we disrupt the space that we're going into, and then from there we'd take it into, we're going to disrupt the space, but what are we going to offer in that space as a limited time offer or menu change? And like I said, the base has always been the key. Our PEI potatoes, our poutine sauce from Quebec, our authentic squeaky cheese curds from just outside Drummondville with our cheese curd supplier, and then all the toppings on top of it. So we've always said anything you can think of putting on top of it, we'll put on top of our base of fries, cheese curds, and gravy.
Now, do you test? One last question. I'll pass the mic to Sylvain. Do you test in the wild? So you have 3 ideas. Do you have a taste test? Do you bring in some customers, or do you just throw it on the menu in a few locations and give it a try? How do you evaluate and test when these ideas come up?
Well, we obviously our product development and marketing team kind of take us through, and it's probably not three options. It's probably 33 options, right? So, but again, we're franchise driven, so food cost is a big priority for us, right? So, if we're bringing an ingredient into the restaurant, we want to make sure that we can use it in 2 or 3 different offerings, whether it's a side action combo that we're putting on the menu or something that's going on to a poutine. But we're really focused on, what our customer base wants. We'll bring it out as a limited time offer, and our limited time offers usually run anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. I would say probably 70% of our limited time offers potentially may stay on the menu post their time period. So we get an opportunity to see how they perform in restaurant with our demographics, and then from there we'll kind of spin it off and either leave it on the menu or bring it back as an additional limited time offer in our next cycle, whether that's in the spring or fall. And spring and falls are usually big time periods for us. And we've looked at now bringing some additional menu items in the summertime for us also.
Inflation has been an issue for a lot of companies, well, all companies in the food space for sure, the last couple of years. Right now, are you still dealing with inflation as intensively as the last couple of years, or are you seeing better days, or are things calming down in your business right now when it comes to the cost of food and dealing with your franchisees and et cetera?
I think food cost is a daily, weekly, monthly challenge in the restaurant industry, but especially on the QSR industry, because we're held in check to keep that theoretical food cost very low for our restaurants, because that's the key to our success. We've also had a large number of price increases on the retail side since the fall of 2019. So, if you look at a lot of our menu items, you've seen a large increase in our prices, and that's really just been driven by the raw product cost from our supply chain. And we call our suppliers supplier partners because they're in this together with us, but they're obviously seeing the increased cost in their side of the business, and they're pushing it obviously to us on the QSR side. But we're very conscious. The last couple of retail price increases we've did, rather than maybe reducing the proteins or reducing some of the items within our poutine menu, we've looked to increase the protein side or the gravy side, poutine sauce side, or even adding additional fries to our sides to just show value. And we're trying to deliver that value with that wow, someone ordering our meal-sized poutine and can't believe the size and the ingredients on there. But we're very, very focused on what that theoretical food cost is for each of our menu items, and really working with our supplier partners and looking for alternative products if we see something that's increased. And obviously the threat of U.S. tariffs, and we're very, very lucky. We are very Canadian supplier focused. We do have a number of raw ingredients that go into our poutine sauce and some of our sauce toppings that are coming from the U.S. We currently only have one protein that's coming from the U.S., but we'll have to make some adjustments to that if we see that cost increasing, because that theoretical food cost is very important to our franchise operators, and that's something that we work with them on a daily business. We're even putting an inventory management platform in with our POS company and our food distributor here in Canada to really help our franchisees focus on what that theoretical food cost is, to really show what the actual cost is to operate within our Smokes Poutinerie family.
I mean, your brand, your business is known to come out with some really energetic themes, energetic promotions. What's the one campaign that was surprisingly successful to you? Like you actually came up with, you had an idea and it really just took off. Do you have an example you can give us?
Well, as I said, we're brand disruptors. So we've had the Smokes Poutinerie Double Double, which we played on the Tim Hortons Double Double, and it was double cheese curd, double gravy, which was very successful for us. We currently have Don't Be a Jerk poutine, so buy one of our jerk poutines and you'll get the second one free. And we've got the president from the south and our current Prime Minister here in Canada. So playing in a sandbox. So we really highlight a lot of that, and we're looking for some really, really strong results from that promo. But as we said, we're small within the QSR segment here in Canada, being brand disruptors and really playing on, poking other QSR players in the industry and really emphasizing our products and the brand touch points as you noticed it, and make it fun. It's got to be fun and exciting, and that's a big part of what we try to deliver for our franchise operators and our fan base within our restaurant environments.
So fun. It feels like you're going to have an elbows up poutine soon on the menu.
Yes.
Well, you buy
something else.
Yeah, buy one and it takes one away from an American or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have our Canadian elbow pads, going into someone's chin, right?
Exactly.
I mean, poutine is now very well known in America, so they would understand.
Yeah,
for sure. They keep loaded fries and a lot of education on what a cheese curd is for our American friends.
While writing,
they're getting there.
While writing Poutine, I've tasted many poutines in the United States. I went through a worldwide pilgrimage of poutine, and oh my God, I couldn't find one that was actually decent in the United States.
Well,
yeah. In Cleveland, they served me a poutine, and for the cheese, they actually put on powdered mozzarella, if you can believe it.
Oh,
that's an abomination.
I've seen a lot of that. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that with shredded cheese or queso cheese or something like that. But
I know.
Poutine with authentic cheese curds is what they need.
100%. Let's wrap up with one last thing. This World Poutine Eating Championship. Tell us about that. It's a fan favorite. What role does it play? I mean, you're building it. It's clear you're building a great community in and around the business. But talk about the championship for a bit.
Yeah, we started the World Poutine Smokes Poutinerie World Poutine Eating Championship in the fall of 2012. Started very small. Actually, it was at BMO Field was our first location. So a banner on a wall with some of the professional eaters from Major League Eating coming up and tasting poutine for the first time. So it's growing now to the second biggest eating competition in North America.
Wow.
The Nathan's Hot Dogs on the 4th of July in Coney Island. This past August, we rolled it into our Smoke-a-Palooza event at Yonge and Dundas Square. So we had our professional Major League eaters attend. Not a world record, so Joey Chestnut still holds the world record of 27.5 pounds of poutine in 10 minutes. So,
come on.
And we're looking to be back at Yonge and Dundas Square September
He's an animal.
of this year.
Right.
Annual one. And we've obviously rolled in. We've had a CEO eat-off challenge for our charity of choice, We Care. And last year we changed it to our Ryan Smokin Memorial CEO eat-off. So we've raised over $1 million for We Care over the last year. So we'll continue to play on that. And the date will be out in coming weeks for this year's event in September.
Well, what a great business! What a great interview. Listen, Mark, thanks so much for joining us on the Food Professor podcast. It's a real treat to get to know the business behind the scenes a little bit. Also, the ambition and the creativity really brings a lot of fun into the food. So, thanks again for taking time to join Sylvain and I on the mic.
Well, thank you for the invite, and thank you for talking about poutine and the love of poutine.
That's right. Well, thank you again, Mark, and all the best to you.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about RFK Jr.'s meeting this week with brands, bringing them on the carpet, the big brands. I saw the president of Pepsi Foods there. I recognized him, for example. I'm sure others were there. And he basically told them, I'm going to just ban artificial dyes, A, and B, and this is, I wasn't familiar with this term, he thinks grass, which is generally recognized as safe, has gotten out of control. Yep. So let's, they being the Americans already ahead of him, and that red dye. What's your impression of this? To me, these dyes kind of make bad food look more appealing, but are they in and of themselves risky or dangerous? Any idea?
Well, typically, I mean, companies wouldn't actually put into food ingredients that makes us sick or would kill us, obviously, because they do the research, they do their due diligence, and then of course there's some oversight provided by the FDA as well. So I do trust that companies are doing the right things, but it's not enough anymore. There is that social contract, and people are reading labels, and this whole clean label movement is just getting companies to look at their labels very differently. I mean, and what RFK is saying is that if your ingredients are not natural, if people can understand what's in their food, that's not on. And so it's a bit political, but the COs aren't stupid. They know the writing is on the wall. The red dye decision, I think, is a precursor to other things, which is why I thought that the ban of red dye number 3 earlier this year was very interesting, because I saw it as a signal, because in Canada it's still legal. It's still going to be used. So it's not necessarily, red dye number 3 is not poison, but if it's overused, it can harm, and it can become a health concern. So I think that really right now you're seeing a lot of companies listening and adjusting. And again, time and time again, we always see industry being ahead of policy, and I think they still want to keep it that way, even with RFK in the White House.
Now, what about
how do you read it?
I read that they're scrambling. I don't think they're ahead of this at all.
You're saying that the industry's scrambling?
I think they got talked to, and they were expecting some kind of honeymoon period where they can start phasing. No doubt they've been trying to find other ways to color their Fruit Loops yellow, green, and purple, but there's no really great way to do that. Right. And that's about to be happen. You could see product lines being discontinued. I mean, a lot of these Fruit Loops or other products, not to pick on them, but a lot of these products sell because they're wild in colors, not because they're good and nutritious or whatever, right? Marketing behind it.
Are you saying that Fruit Loops are nutritious?
No. How should I put it? No, they're not nutritious. But
don't tell my kids.
I've had a bowl of Fruit Loops myself, but they don't.
I mean, my kids, like, Fruit Loops are like cottage food, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think they're. I don't think they're panicking, but I think they're close to it. I think they generally.
You think they're panicking? That's a hard word. Wow.
Close to panicking.
That's not how I read it at all. I mean, I just see an industry realizing that they're dealing a different regime, but also they're being extremely careful and polite. But they do understand that the consumer is going into a bit of a different direction. I think they care more about the consumer than Washington. Anyways, that's how I see it. Anyways,
we'll see. My read is slightly different. We'll see.
Because there's the voter and there's the consumer,
and then there's
two different people.
I mean, we've seen the American government, the now constituted American government, making decisions at a speed of which is unheard of, right? The education ministry department just got shut down overnight, locked everybody out.
But don't you feel that there's a bit of a change of tone, though? Because I would say probably Trump's honeymoon and RFK's honeymoon ended about 10 days ago.
No, I don't think so. I think, yes, from a macro perspective, particularly.
Because the economics aren't necessarily there anymore.
But I don't think the pace of change is even hit yet in the food business. In other words, they are seeing a pace of change in other lines of things, USAID, the education department. And
the food industry doesn't move as fast as anybody else. I mean, it's a slow moving industry traditionally.
So this is why I think they're panicking, because they're close to it, because an industry used to having a big say and moving slowly is about to get whacked over the head with a 2x4. That's my impression.
An organic 2x4.
Let's talk about this this grass, generally recognized as safe. Now, it feels like there's a similar kind of program here in Canada, which is kind of a letter of non-objection. Am I am I getting that correct, or what do you know about this graph?
Yeah.
And
So
how
if
it
there's
applies to
no,
us?
if there seems to be no risk, it's approved essentially. It's not called the same. There is a term, but you basically can get approval without going through clinical trials and things like that tend to be quite costly. Honestly, companies want approval as soon as possible, but there is a path to a quick approval for sure.
Let's talk about COVID 5 years later. It's quite an anniversary, and I actually wrote about it in a business report I write for retail, and about how 5 years ago I wrote a report that basically said, there's this thing going on in China. It was February 2020, and it could cast a shadow on Canadian retail if it ever comes here. What an experience that was. Now, my conclusion in talking to many executives was, thanks to COVID, there's very many not good things, but one of the things that it did bring us, particularly in the context of what's happening here today, or with current events, is more resilience, more investment in supply chain visibility. We're better able to handle that kind of uncertainty. Here today, gone tomorrow, and there's less jumping at shadows because we went through something different, but something equally enormous 5 years ago. Yep. I want to get your perception of things in the food industry that have changed either for the better or for the worse, or you thought should have changed but haven't, thanks to the COVID era.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I don't know if you saw my piece this morning on the 5 years later, and it was a bit of a celebration. I think we don't celebrate enough, I think, the food industry, what we've gone through. I mean, in the last 5 years, we've gone through COVID. And of course, Ukraine hit the industry when supply chains were incredibly weakened by the pandemic. And then we came out of it. And now, of course, we're dealing with tariffs and Trump. And I'm very confident we'll get through this very easily. So I think we need to celebrate the resiliency of the food industry. I think that people have underestimated. I mean, if you remember 5 years ago, a lot of people actually were calling in asking me if Canada was running out of food.
Yep.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it was a ridiculous question to ask me. But after you get 5-6 phone calls asking me the same question, you got to go, okay, something's wrong here. There's just no trust. Trust the food supply chain. And I think people trust the food supply chain way more, which really has made, but COVID, I think, has actually pushed the industry to think differently about procurement, the middle mile, just in time, all that stuff that we don't see out there. I do think that, since COVID, we've seen all grocers, all of them, invest in the middle mile, all of them. And I visited a couple of centers myself, and the state of the art stuff. I mean, it was just incredible to see. Mm-hmm. I do think it's the legacy of COVID, and of course, are stores managed differently? Well, you got the self-checkout stuff, maybe, and
a little bit,
but other than that, I don't think there's a whole lot that's happening because of course, there's some differences here and there, but not because of COVID specifically. But overall, I think that the industry is much stronger now than before. And most importantly, I think it was forced to learn about the consumer psyche, like how consumers are thinking about them and how they need to be in front of things like the Loblaw tea. The tea, I don't think, because of what has happened the last 5 years, I don't think Loblaw would have actually thought of putting a tea right next to prices of products impacted by tariffs. I don't think they would have actually thought about that, but they're thinking about these things now.
It's a great assessment, and you're right about, if you walk in the average store today, plus or minus, it doesn't look tremendously different than it did in January 2020. And to that, I would say stores were already quite clean and hygienic. I mean, you could operate in the stores. So it wasn't like a big impact on what is done in the stores, but you're absolutely right. Visibility, supply chain, movement of goods, getting ready for disruptions. I mean, our grocers deal with disruptions all the time.
The obscure part of the business,
Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right. Such a great.
But
amount.
Are employees paid more? No, because it's the same. The economics are the same basically, and so. But I do think. I do see grocers being way more aggressive from a communication strategy, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing.
Let's talk about a new development for your Canada's Food Price Report. You got a new partner in the game. Talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were approached, I think, days after our 15th edition came out in December. I was actually still in Germany. I got an email from the University of Alberta asking me if we were interested in actually allowing a fifth institution into our group. And so we met in January, the 4 universities. So there's Guelph, University of Saskatchewan, UBC, and us, Dalhousie University. And we met and I said, listen, are you guys open to welcoming the University of Alberta? And just so you know, we have rejected other institutions that I won't name which one, but they're very well known, and the group wasn't really receptive to allowing because it's a big.
You don't have to name the frame, but what would be the criteria where you say yes or no? Is it technical skill?
What would be the contribution? I mean, how we have what we need. We're forecasting, and we have 4 universities forecasting. I'll be honest, as a lead author, it makes my nightmare even worse because I have to get more co-authors to agree on a forecast. So I'm not a big fan of adding more people here. So it's more work. But the U of A is an outstanding institution. It's a U15 school like us. And I must say their dietitians there, their nutrition program is probably one of the best in the country. So what I said to the dean there was, why don't we actually get the U of A to make a contribution to the report from a nutritional perspective? So inflation goes up by, 5%. What does it mean to Canadians? And so I met with the Department of Nutrition at the U of A. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and they're just ecstatic. Yeah. So made the announcement yesterday. So I'm very happy that we're adding a new institution. So we'll be 5 partnering institutions for number 16.
Fantastic. Now
Sweet 16.
Let's end off with some hardware question. You got some kind of medal or something? What's this all about?
Oh, actually, I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I didn't even know that they were coronation medals to honor Charles III's coronation. Did you know that?
No, I have no idea. What is it?
So I get this letter from the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec, telling me that I've won this medal, and she's inviting me to her house on April 9th to get the medal along with another artist, a well-known artist in Quebec, Florent Volant. He's an indigenous singer, a legend in Quebec, really. So I'm actually looking forward to meeting him because I've never met him before. And I thought they had the wrong guy.
So hold on. Do you know the process? Did somebody nominate you? I mean, don't pick a name out of a hat here. Like, why did you get this? Why did you get this medal?
They started. They're going to give out these medals to a lot of people, but they're just starting. So they're rolling it out over several years, and there's a committee that's formed by the Lieutenant Governor. And what they do is that they say, "Oh, so who do you think should win this medal?" So they actually put a bunch of names on a list, and my name was there. And so they said, "Okay, so who do we know who can populate an application for that person?" And so they contacted Dalhousie, and they actually just populated the form, and that form goes through 2 committees that wouldn't actually see my name on it. It's actually reviewed by 2 committees, and they don't know who that person is. They just review the curriculum vitae. And got the award. Yeah. So I'm honored. I'm honored. Yeah,
it's all about making a contribution, right? Is if we had to sum it all up. Right?
So the criteria is basically making a national and international contribution, basically.
That's you in a nutshell. Well, congratulations, my friend.
Well, I think you're up next, buddy.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I think
all you need is someone to think about you. So hey, out there, if you listen to this podcast, come on, call me. I'll help you out.
I expect you to wear that medal at Cial, by the way, every day that you're at Cial. I expect you to be wearing that hardware because I think you'll have it by then. Reminder to everybody.
I will. Absolutely. I will. Yeah.
It's going to be a great show. Once again, we're the official podcast of Cial. Listen, it's been a great episode. So much going on. And once again, thanks to everybody who's watching and listening. Our Refresh YouTube page, lots of stuff going on there. A little too close up pictures. I'm trying to fix that in the AI tool. But it is a pile of fun. Anyway, let's leave it there. I'm Mike LeBlanc, consumer advocate, media entrepreneur, and a bunch of other things. And you are?
I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Safe travels, everyone.
Take care.